The word star is one which holds many different meanings to it, from the celestial bodies scattered across our universe to someone of exceptional prowess in a field of athletics, academics, or even acting, and it can even be used to describe someone as the most important person in a field. And even when we move into the more paranormal trends, they also seem to revolve around the power of stars. From the tarot to horoscopes, it is a word that has been given an immense amount of strength and weight, to the point it matches up quite well with its real-life counterpart. And because of this, I can't think of any better word to describe the density-dominating dame who delivers disses and devastates domiciles, Yuki Tsukumo, one of the 4 special grade sorcerers. Yuki Tsukumo is one of the 4 special grade curse users of the Heisei era during the main story of Jujutsu Kaisen. And like the other 3 special grade curse users, she has her own grievances with the nature of curses and the higher-ups of Jujutsu society, actively shirking her responsibilities, draining Jujutsu Academy resources, and not really taking on missions. She viewed the current reactionary approach to curse exorcism to be an extremely flawed system that could never fix the greater problems in the world. So instead of bending to a system she couldn't control, Yuki chose to travel the world in search of a more permanent one, though her disdain for Jujutsu society goes beyond simply a conflict of ideals. But before we can get too deeply into that, let's understand the meaning behind her name and design. Design-wise, Yuki Tsukumo seems to have 3 major influences on her character's appearance and just general aesthetic, which can be later expanded on into her role that she plays in the main story. The first of these design influences is probably the most apparent one, as it seems like she has taken direct influence from Yuji Itadori's dream girl, Jennifer Lawrence, one of the star actors for the Hunger Games franchise and of course the X-Men movies. And she had also begun starring in a new film around the arc in which Yuki made her first on-screen debut. This connection to Jennifer Lawrence even continues beyond just a general appearance, as Yuki is the person who taught Todo the "what type of girl are you into" icebreaker question that he would go on to use on Yuji, whose answer would of course be someone like Jennifer Lawrence, as well as his other descriptors describing Yuki pretty directly. Though her general design being a more casual wear aesthetic, mixed together with her own expressive personality to mask her sort of eternal trauma, as well as her absurd strength and even more absurdly powerful curse technique, it is very possible that Yuki draws direct influence from the Type Moon character Aoko Aozaki, specifically the version of her that we see in Tsukihime, as Akatame within the Jujutsu Kaisen fanbook has admitted to taking direct influence from Type Moon works, saying that works like Fate Zero, as well as just the general writings of Kinoko Naosu, has helped them figure out how they wanted to go about world building in Jujutsu Kaisen, specifically when establishing the setting and systems in place, with one of the most commonly pointed out influences being the reality marvels are a clear influence on how Akatame writes domains. So some elements of Yuki's character being rather similar to that of Aoko's, as well as her stumbling upon Todo during his youth, seeing great potential in him and training him to become one of the more powerful sorcerers in his class, might be another intentional Aoko reference to her meeting with Shiki. Though the clearest influence on Yuki's design comes from another one of Jujutsu Kaisen's major influences, that being Masashi Kishimoto's Naruto, and more specifically the 5th Hokage of Konoha, Tsunade the Slug Princess, who not only carries herself in a very similar manner, but both characters have a similar level of physical strength, and each of them have tamed a special beast which helps them use their own unique abilities, but isn't mandatory. As well, there are very similar moments and events which play out in both stories that mirror each other quite well, but we'll get more into that later into the video. Now, on the direct appearance of Yuki Tsukumo, she has had a couple designs sprinkled throughout the series, all of which demonstrate her own worldly or traveled nature, with the general themes of her outfit focusing on a biker or motorcycle aesthetic. From her debut appearance, where it features her in full biker getup with a leather jacket, riding boots, helmets, and even a pair of goggles, she is always connected to her motorcycle, and it gives her a unique style unmatched by anyone else else in the series, which of course are done so they can help get across her general ideals and personality without having her have to spell it out too much, as motorcycles have a great connection to both delinquents but also symbolize one's personal freedom. And so, you instantly understand from Yuki's connection to said motorcycles what type of person she is, which is compounded by the fact that we know that Todo learned a lot of how he acts from her, and therefore we can attribute a lot of Todo's actions to her actions as well. Now, the next outfit, which speaks more for her character, is the sleeveless top with exposed waist and red cargo pants, and of course, combat boots, which according to her in Volume 23's extras, is a recreation of what she wore all the way back in Jujutsu High. But in general, this design seems to be trying to emulate the outfit Toji Zenin would wear during his fight with Gojo all those years back, with Yuki of course being someone who was personally interested in him back then, specifically due to his heavenly restricted body. But also, it's a way to maintain a running theme of bad luck that befalls anyone who wears this type of outfit. Now, Yuki Tsukumo's name, much like the other names in Jujutsu Kaisen, hold within it a meaning that directly ties to her character and role into the story, starting first with her family name of Tsukumo, which are comprised of the characters which can be understood as the number 99 in Japanese, which is a rather strange name, but could relate to her being one of the many star plasma vessels born into the world. But it is also possible that her name is intended to be a Gorowase pun, or a Japanese number pun, as the number 99 can be read as QQ, which could be pronounced very similar to the word for emergency rescue, which could be directly referencing her intended role during the Shibuya incident, where Yuki arrives at the last second to save everyone from Kenjaku. Now, moving on to her given name of Yuki, it seems that the characters comprised it reference a similar idea, and makes it a little bit redundant, as they both essentially mean the basis or the foundation of something, though the U portion of the name is taken from the word Jiu, which is freedom in Japanese. So her name can be understood or described as someone who believes freedom is the basis for life, and that directly relates to her aforementioned character design and ideals, as Yuki is someone who believes humans should strive to create a world without curse energy as a whole, because while it can be useful for exercising curses, the energy itself is the root of their creation in the first place, so no matter how many curses are destroyed, as long as curse energy still exists, this will continue an endless cycle of creation and destruction, with only two peaceful solutions. Either everyone learns to become Jujutsu Sorcerers, or we completely expunge all curse energy. She even viewed those born with heavenly restrictions as a good sign of the next step for enlightenment that people should be aiming for, and specifically, Toji Fushiguro was quite a unique example of this that she really wanted to study. And one of the reasons that she may have highly respected or highly valued heavenly restrictions stems mostly from them gifting recipients with greater strength to grow and develop in their own ways, sometimes even being ostracized from the Jujutsu society as a whole, causing them to become stronger, as from her perspective, even when someone is born with a great technique, it can more often than not be a bane rather than a boon, as such is the case for those born into the role of the Star Plasma Vessel, which is a title attributed to those born with the capacity for integration with Tengen's immortality curse technique, and will be used to refresh their body in order to avoid Tengen undergoing a forced evolution. Though, in the process, the body and mind of the person integrated are weaved into Tengen's form and are ultimately lost. Though their voices do linger and they speak from the depths of Tengen's heart, they cannot hear the Star Plasma Vessels. Only other Star Plasma Vessels can hear them. Which, this is a sacrifice of life the higher-ups of the Jujutsu Society see as worth it in the end, as not only will it only occur every 500 years, but Tengen provides many benefits for Sorcerer Society as they are now. So it could be argued that these sacrifices save more lives than they harm. Though, to Yuki, this level of dehumanization is something that she could not stand for, even saying that if the Star religious group wished to secure and prevent the Star Plasma Vessel from being fused instead of killing her outright, then she would have sided with them in a heartbeat. As well, we also see Yuki willing to work alongside rogue Jujutsu sorcerers like Geto's family, following Geto's own descent into madness. And it is the sympathy as well as disdain for the current system in place that stems from her own history of being a Star Plasma Vessel, Though, unlike Riko, Yuki was able to funnel all the rage she felt from being born into a situation where her life could be taken from her before she even had a chance to live it, and use that anger to hone an innate curse technique that she would name Star Rage. Now, Star Rage is a pretty straightforward technique, but it is also absurdly powerful, as it allows the user to gift themselves, or their Shikigami, with virtual mass or density. This additional mass enhances either party with immense physical destructive force, without the cost of any speed, as by its own description, this mass is all virtual, only affecting those she strikes with it, which, when her Star Rage is active, she can easily punch through most people, even sorcerers who are protecting their body with curse energy, though balancing out how much mass to give herself at any given time likely is difficult, as her only student Todo managed to get a massive scar across his face due to Yuki being too tough on him during their training. So it's unclear if Yuki just has trouble holding back, or if Todo just wasn't trying hard enough there. Though, speaking of her connections to Todo, Yuki's cover of Volume 23 is not only a great representation of her curse technique and the possible dangerous usage of it later on, as she holds a shrunken Jupiter at the tip of her fingers, with Jupiter likely being selected due to it having the strongest gravity in our current solar system, but the pose and background of the cover is a direct reference to Volume 5's cover featuring Todo, and her imitating Todo is actually sort of supposed to demonstrate the opposite, to help you realize that a lot of what Todo's character is actually directly comes from Yuki's own personality, though Yuki didn't select him for any particular reason, stumbling upon him during his youth and finding it interesting that he was willing to fight those who held seniority over him if he truly disagreed with them. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, she's the one who taught him the icebreaker that he became iconic for. And this question is also very interestingly designed, as it's done to get a general understanding of someone based on their taste. This way you can more properly approach how you interact with them. And in the case of Yuki, her answer is the rough and hardworking type. Though, returning back to her curse technique, as I mentioned, she can apply her virtual mass to her own Shikigami, this winged serpent named Garuda, who was a cursed spirit that has now been converted into a cursed tool through the power of Star Rage in order to be used more properly by Yuki. Garuda is also seemingly conscious to a limited degree, as it can work independently from Yuki and can have mass transferred to it without needing to be directly touched. This allows the two of them to perform combination attacks together in rapid succession, such as coiling Garuda around a target so that Yuki can move in and strike them, to balling up Garuda into a tightly packed ball and booting them so hard that they can cleave right through an enemy. Yuki can even use Garuda like a whip, as its tail functions a lot like a whip's grip, and the kinetic force is of course strengthened by Yuki's technique. And when working together, their combined power is easily strong enough to take down most special grade cursed spirits in about a single strike. Now, Garuda itself is a rather interesting cursed spirit turned tool, as its name not only helps get across its power, but its connection to Tengen, as well as working with Yuki's own traveled nature. And because of that, you can imagine it's a rather complex one. Firstly, you have the kanji used to write the name, as it contains not only the female character for Phoenix, which is a name often associated with the Japanese figure of Ho-Oh or Suzaku of the Four Cardinal Beasts, but of course, due to the relation to Phoenix, Garuda being a Shikigami born from Yuki's curse technique could explain how Yuki qualified as a star plasma vessel. As they described, they are people who possess the potential to fuse with Tengen's own curse technique and reset or restore Tengen's body back to some sort of basic state. Thus, someone with an innate connection to the major Phoenix in most mythologies, and something often associated with immortality and rebirth, would definitely qualify. Though, I should mention that this element of death and rebirth being related to the Phoenix symbology often arises more from Western and Greek readings of Phoenixes, but that does not mean that Suzaku or any other type of Japanese Phoenix doesn't have that association as well. I just needed to make sure that it was clear that there are many different types of Phoenixes in mythology, and Japanese ones aren't always related to death and rebirth, but can be. Now, the second character of the name can be translated to wheel or ring, which of course could tie back to one of the four heavenly kings, this specifically being Zo-Choten, as Zo-Choten is seen specifically as the Buddhist equivalent to Suzaku, and is known as the Lord of Growth and Enlargement, usually intended in a spiritual sense, but the title could be why Yuki's curse technique can apply virtual mass. He is also often associated with the eradication of demons, always always being seen depicted as stepping on the head of a jockey, which of course could tie back to Yuki's own ideals of eliminating curse energy as a whole, and in part ridding the world of cursed spirits. As well, Zochoten, like the other 4 Heavenly Kings, is sometimes depicted with a fiery or flaming halo centered behind their head, and could explain the wheel or ring portion of Garuda's name. Though, we also see Garuda's name written in a simplified Japanese as well, and that lets us know how it is supposed to be pronounced, which of course is Garuda, and is a name that carries with it an entirely different set of inspirations, as it greatly relates back to the Hindu deity Garuda, who is not only the personal mount of Vishnu, but is also often referred to as the king of all birds, and possesses the ability to travel anywhere in need of protection. The role of protector aligns greatly with Yuki's own namesake. As well, Garuda has been reinterpreted through Japanese Buddhism as a half-man, half-bird giant who breathes fire. They are also known as the ultimate enemy of all serpents, which that last part is actually a weirdly common element shared between a bunch of different iterations of Garuda's namesake, and is likely, ironically, what led to the cursed spirit being somewhat serpent-like in appearance. As well, its transition from a cursed spirit to a cursed tool could be in reference to the fact that Zochoten, as well as the other 4 Heavenly Kings, their flaming halo is sometimes referred to as being made from Garuda flame. So, the flame of a Garuda is converted into an object or converted into a ring. Though ultimately, it having a name that has traveled through many cultures works very well with Yuki's own decision to travel the world in search of her own answers. And speaking of names, the name of the technique itself likely has 2 specific origins. Firstly, you have the in-universe one, this being star rage coming from Yuki's own rage at being born a star plasma vessel, though the Japanese of the name tells a bit of a different story, with the name of the technique essentially being Bambaya, or roughly translating to finish him or beat them up, which not only greatly summarizes the simplicity of Star Rage's ability, but is also likely in reference to the legendary professional wrestler turned international superstar and politician Antonio Inoki, as not only was Inoki a well-traveled person similar to Yuki, during his career as a wrestler, Inoki would often come to the ring to the sounds of Inoki Bambaya, an entrance theme that elevates him as a larger-than-life figure coming here to finish them off. And this wouldn't be the first time that Akatame would use one of the 4 special grade curse users to specifically reference a popular athlete, with Gojo's own stretch being directly in reference to Ichiro Suzuki, the baseball player. Now, while Star Rage does apply virtual mass, there is a limit to the amount that Yuki can apply to herself and not feel any adverse side effects. But this is simply a threshold for optimal performance, as Star Rage actually has no stated limit to the amount of virtual mass that she can apply at a given time, which with this in mind means she can use this element of her technique in an extremely dangerous way to catch someone in a seemingly inescapable trap, as she can increase her own mass and density to the point that Yuki's body becomes the center point of a black hole, a cosmic event in space-time where gravity is so dense that nothing, including light, time, or matter, could escape from its pull, and one of the most common types of black holes is a stellar black hole, usually generated from a collapsing massive star following it going supernova, which is likely an intended symbolic connection included for Yuki's own character, which is likely an intended a bit of symbolism connected to Yuki's usage of this attack, as she does so after being split in half and saving Chozo, reinforcing this symbolism even more given the fact that Chozo possesses a technique called Supernova, which was specifically used to help force Kenjaku to reveal his technique at the beginning of the fight, which narratively doomed Yuki from the get-go. As well, the description on how black holes function and the visuals used are very similar to her own cover art, asking the reader to imagine if Earth was reduced to a diameter of 2 centimeters. So the miniature Jupiter seen on the visuals of the volume foreshadow her being able to create a black hole with her ability, with the chapter that she does so closing out the volume she's the cover on, and the promotional video released to coincide the volume's release depicted multiple instances of gravity being manipulated, though the fate of Yuki being split down the middle by Kenjaku may actually be a reference back to one of her earlier mentioned inspirations, this of course being Tsunade. In fact, a good few points of Yuki's character and during her fight with Kenjaku could be seen as references back to Tsunade's own character and her fight against Madara Uchiha. Firstly, Yuki is one of the original 3 special grade curse users before they had discovered Yuta Okotsu. This put her into a similar position as the seinen in Naruto. As well, Tsunade's ability to summon Katsuyu, which is of course tied back to her own literary inspiration, could be one of the reasons why Yuki was given Garuda in the first place. Yuki also possesses a strong understanding of a reverse curse technique, which allows her to heal her own critical wounds extremely quickly, though it does weaken her in general. But her understanding reverse curse technique in general could be a reference back to Tsunade's own special talents in healing ninjutsu. As well, referring back to the fight against Madara Uchiha, both characters seem to deliver devastating blows to major antagonists during their battle, with Yuki punching Kenjaku's arms nearly clean off in one strike, while Tsunade punches a hole right through Madara's torso. As well, during a similar moment near the end of their fights, where things are looking good for both Yuki and Tsunade, a surprise attack causes them to be split completely down the middle, and while in their split states, both characters focus their efforts to saving or helping those around them before helping themselves. Though, unlike Tsunade, Yuki was not able to bounce back from her encounter with Kenjaku, which ties of course to Yuki's own role as a character, as she seems to have been created to fulfill 2 specific purposes which match the meaning of her name. First, Yuki's role at the end of the story seems to be to absolve Chozo of his antagonistic actions all the way back in Shibuya, as she used her final moments to gift him with essentially the permission to live a new life as a human, rather than just to die as a cursed spirit, which does work very well with her own character and motivation. And this of course would go on to allow Chozo to escape with the prison realm and return to his family so that they can engage the next part of the Calling Game arc. As well, it's nice that her wording seems to imply sort of a rebirth for Chozo, which of course ties back to her own Phoenix connections through Garuda. As well, Akatame spent a lot of time building her up as someone important and powerful. She is not only one of the few special grade sorcerers in the world, but is also a mystery woman from Toto's backstory, and she's strong enough to have saved everyone from Kenjaku back in Shibuya. To say that she was book strong was an understatement. Even during her one major fight in the story, part of the opening was Kenjaku reminding the reader how big a deal someone like her really is, claiming a special grade is a rank given to something or someone who can topple a nation if they so please. Akatame wants us to believe that she is someone of great power, status, and importance, so that when she is defeated, it more greatly emphasizes how powerful the antagonist was who beat her. So, to use a wrestling metaphor, Yuki was the equivalent of WWE's Intercontinental Championship during the mid-2010s. Someone who was propped up with a title and status, but mostly uses a measuring stick for figures in a greater storyline, and I can't help but feel that she is wasted because of this. Realistically, I don't think anyone believed for a second that Yuki and Chozo stood a chance against Kenjaku, and the fact that her sacrifice was done mostly to just reveal Kenjaku's anti-gravity curse technique that he inherited from Yuji's mom, and to move the prison rail out of Tengen's domain so Angel could free Gojo, it just makes her role in the story feel really lackluster in retrospect, especially since Kenjaku would go on to be defeated only 35 chapters after this. And honestly, while I kinda hate walking away from her character feeling a little slated by the writing, it is possible that this is the intended effect, sort of an empty feeling like her death was meaningless, similar to other deaths in the series. Even with that in mind, I can only feel like she was wasted because of how much I actually liked her, and to me, that means that, for the limited time we had her, she was a good character. And a lot of this is attributed to her own personality. She was someone who was slightly rude, flirty, comedic, and a strong fighter, whose personality is clearly a mask created by her because of the life that she was forced into, and it is through the practice of Jujutsu that she was able to convert her pain into something empowering. Use that newfound talent to spread a message of self-empowerment to the next generation, and burn so brightly that she creates a world where something like the Star Plasma Vessel no longer needs to exist. You could even say that Yuki resembles a star right to her end, something with a bright shine that we only ever noticed long after it had burned out. And with that said and done, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos like in the future, I have a Patreon at patreon.com/MediNotTheBadGuy. Every little bit helps keep this channel flowing as smoothly as it does, and if you want to avoid becoming a Star Plasma Vessel yourself, you can do so by buying a copy of Shimoneta, A Boring World with Constant Dirty Jokes Doesn't Exist at buyshimoneta.com.